Today I'm talking to you about my first week with the Sony FX3.
She say I'm a triple, honey, welcome to Trivago. Tell me who you know, who is you tripping for a follow? Ball in the air like Showtime at the Apollo. Puffing up your chest, the next thing you know is hollow. But well, hello, I've been swinging like some jello. If God wanted a fun guy, he gets some portobello. So I guess I need some grease up on my elbow. Yeah, but now my light turned yellow, and I've been looking for a cheat code. Life don't come in a neat bowl, bringing the receipt home. But we know that. Keep your head up and your seat pulled back.
After my first week with the Sony FX3, I have been absolutely blown away by the image quality. As you know, I've been shooting all of this with Cinetone, which is a color palette that I really enjoy. I know there's been a lot of talk in the past about how Sony color palette is just not the first choice of a lot of content creators, and I think with this color profile, I am super happy with it personally.
I'm seeing you operate. I'm seeing you seeing me too. And I like all the ways you shake, and I can relate to the ways you move. So come on into my habitat, or we can meet up anywhere you choose. Anytime we can interact, I'll be down with that to connect to you. We got it good. We got it good.
Oh my god. We're stopped over the largest drop here. This is where they had to choose to stop the lift.
As you likely already know, the Sony FX3 is essentially, or I guess physically inside, it is the same as the A7S III, which was another camera that was high on my list. So that means you get the new menus, you get a lot of the features that came with the A7S III. I really enjoyed that Sony just kind of builds that all the ergonomics that came in with the Sony A7R4 got ported over to the A7S III when it came out, and they keep moving forward like that. It is definitely positive progression. We'll talk more about the ergonomics of the FX3 a little bit later. One of the physical changes that I actually found myself using a lot is the zoom button that's right over the shutter. As you can see right now, we're on a 20mm prime, but I can zoom in like that. I can go into APS-C mode. Back again. You can also set it to go into digital zoom if that's something that you're comfortable with. I just find that as somebody that can just shoot with a 20mm prime, and it really just kind of ups the versatility, and I don't have to go into a menu to switch from full frame to APS-C mode, that I can just do that by sliding. And that's something that I actually do really enjoy. Another one of the changes, the physical changes, is that there is a fan now. The fan is outside of the weather sealing of the camera, so you don't have to worry about like if water gets into the fan that it's actually dripping inside of your camera or anything like that. What it does is it allows you to, if you're shooting in hot environments, it gives you a little bit more certainty that your camera is going to perform as you expect. With that cooling, in the menus, you can set that fan to off if you don't want it. It's actually surprisingly quiet. You don't even really hear it if you're actually using it. So I would have no problems if I had a shotgun microphone. Right now I have the Rode NTG video mic on top of my camera, and if I was running this and the fan was on, I would hear absolutely no interference from it. With this camera, you're getting 4K uncropped, or 4K 60 frames a second, even uncropped if that's something that you want. I found myself using that a lot. I feel like if you're a follower of this channel, you've maybe heard me push against the need of shooting 4K all the time. Over this past winter, I've changed my perspective a little bit in regards to at least like what we're doing this winter, which is making a snowboard/ski film. 4K 60 is super important for that, because just the fact that everybody's moving around within my frame, and I don't always have I don't know exactly where everyone's always going to go. So it's very nice to be able to crop in post-production if ever required, or to just get a little bit closer to the rider. In the past week of test footage, that has not been something that I've encountered. We have not been in the backcountry. However, this is some footage that you're seeing on the screen. This is shot by Ben Webb when we were out a couple of weeks ago. It is shot in Sony S-Log, and this is just the basic Sony LUT applied to it. Inside this camera, you can shoot 10-bit 422. I personally, the footage that you've been seeing that I've shot here is actually 420, and it's shot at 8-bit, and it's straight out of camera, so I'm not applying anything to it. If I was doing something that I knew I needed a little bit more leverage in post-production, I would be shooting that higher bit rate. And speaking of higher bit rates, if you want to go out to an external recorder, you can be shooting 16-bit RAW. So really this is a fully functioning cinema camera within the form factor of a mirrorless body. I like that it just looks like I'm shooting log. Another thing that's interesting for me, as somebody that maybe doesn't have the highest spec computer in the world or doesn't always want to go through with building proxies, is that you can actually build proxies within the camera. That is something that you can enable within this camera, and that's just something that as a mirrorless shooter in the past, that's never been a functionality. That's always been an additional step if we were shooting 4K 60 and at a higher bit rate. Now you can just build that all inside the camera. One of the benefits, if you're somebody that you know you're going to be getting an A7S3 and putting a cage on it, if you get the FX3, it is unlikely that you will actually need a cage. There's so many mounting points on there, and when you mount the handle, you get an additional mounting point. You use 2, but you get 3 up top. The handle, I guess I haven't spoken about that yet. It is essentially your audio interface, so if you want XLR inputs, you can do 4-channel audio off the handle through the multi-interface, so no wires connecting. It does disable the 3.5 jack on the actual camera body, but gives you one in the handle if you want. Another thing that I've never had as a digital SLR/mirrorless shooter is tally light, so to actually see the red recording light on the front of the camera gives me peace of mind, as well as the red frame on the actual LCD and the tally light on the back, and the record button up top lights up red as well, so you really know that the camera is recording. You can also customize the tally lights in the menu, so if you don't want to, if you're shooting an event and you're in the dark, you don't want to be the person just in the corner just all lit up by red, that's something that you can do as well. Maybe to speak to the placement of the buttons, as again somebody coming from a digital SLR/mirrorless background, I find it a little bit challenging to use. I don't love the way the grip and all the buttons feel while your hand's on there. It's not meant to really be shot as though you were holding a mirrorless camera. I actually found myself using the record button that's on the front. It's on the front bottom of the body, and I find myself using that record button way more often than the actual top record button. As I'm sure you're aware, you can customize these buttons to be whatever you want, but I've left everything pretty stock, and quite honestly, I've been very happy with the choices that Sony has made as far as the button functionality goes. To speak to the IBIS in this camera, the in-body image stabilization, it will definitely get rid of smaller shakes, but it is by no means something that's going to really transform your footage all that well. If you pair that with a lens that also has optical stabilization within that makes a really great combination. Shooting this 20mm prime as well as the Tamron 28-75, I don't get that, so I have to be very, very careful. The camera actually records all the metadata of what the gyros are doing, so if you're interested in going into post-production and running additional stabilization on it, you can do that. I would probably, I guess, usability-wise, I'm just likely going to be purchasing lenses with OSS in the future. One more thing that I love about this camera is the fact that if you get one of the multi-interface, the hot shoe mics, you have no cords, you don't have to mount anything. All of the information just goes straight through the hot shoe and into your camera, so you can be running with one less cord. I have found in the past that when I'm using microphones that have a cord, the cord is usually the piece that breaks it. The mic is always usually fine, but I do find myself replacing cords, even in this Rode VideoMic NTG. I think I'm on my second or third at this point. I've had it for about a year and a half. So that is one thing that I'm very happy with, and I will be testing out most of the microphones available and posting videos on the channel, so maybe subscribe and like this video if you are interested in seeing that in the future. Now, they're really nice to have. I wish that they could have fit an ND filter into this. Right now I'm using the Peter McKinnon 2 to 5 stop Polar Pro, and I do like that a lot, but if I could have just had that in the camera like the FX6, that would have been amazing. But I do understand that the body is way too small to try to accommodate something like that. And then two other things that this camera does not have: DCI 4K, unfortunately, and also there's no waveform monitor on your display, so you can cycle through a few different options, but you will not unfortunately see a waveform monitor. So to summarize all of this, as somebody that shoots mirrorless cameras and coming from recently digital SLRs, even last year I was still on the digital SLR D850 train, using this cinema camera has really been a joy. The image quality that comes off of it, amazing. The autofocus, it just makes the right decisions. The color palette, the Cinetone color palette, I love. To speak briefly to, I guess, the A7S3 versus the FX3, and the one piece that made my decision just possible, I guess, the positive and negative is that you can't go wrong with either option, that both are fantastic. What tipped me was the fact that I am a wedding photographer / video creator, and sometimes I have to be out there in 40 degrees Celsius conditions and doing rolling coverage of a wedding ceremony. And having the fans in the back of this and knowing that I can do extended longer coverage, I've never had a problem with the A7S3, but I do feel a little bit more comfortable knowing that there is some cooling going on for that rolling coverage. That's it, that's all. I'm very happy with this camera, and if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below and I'll be happy to get back to you. Hope you enjoyed my yellow chain over there in the background, my blown out garden over here. It's out of focus for a reason. Shot this at f1.8 because the garden looks absolutely terrible. It's also a windy day. I apologize for any of the wind that you heard. I have a towel over top of the camera, and I'm talking into a camera that's just covered with a towel. It's a little bit weird. Better than that wind noise though. But that's how you do it when you're all alone out here in the world. Lindsay's having a nap. I think it's almost lunchtime.